Hey everyone, and welcome back. Are you ready to dive into some really wild stuff today?
I know I am, and this one is a doozy.
We're talking AI and politics and like really getting in there.
We've got some juicy source material for this deep dive.
We do. It's a conversation between, get this, a user and their AI agent called P.
Okay, so what makes P so special?
P is playing the role of an undecided voter in the upcoming election.
Whoa, so we're basically getting a sneak peek into how an AI wraps its circuits around all this political chaos.
You got it.
Yeah.
And hold on, because it gets even better. P's creator doesn't just feed it like dry, boring political facts.
Oh no, what's on the menu for P?
Think of a fire hose of social media content. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Wow, talk about trial by fire. They just threw P right into the deep end of political discourse, huh?
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We get to watch P react to things like Kamala Harris's interview on Fox News, just like in real time, and unpack it all.
Man, that interview was something else. What did P make of it?
Well, first thing P picked up on was how Harris got, when they grilled her about immigration and that whole border security thing.
Yeah, you could practically feel the tension through the screen.
Right. And P even noticed those little things, like when Harris was like, let me finish.
Which, let's be real, can sometimes sound a little, I don't know, shifty if you're already not sure about her.
It's like he's picking up on the secret language of politics, all those unspoken cues that tell you more than the words themselves.
Subtle but important.
Totally. But it doesn't end there. P then goes on to break down Harris's responses about the economy and like all her criticisms of Trump. And this is where it gets really interesting. You start to see P connecting the dots, almost like he's predicting the talking points.
Okay, so he's starting to see the patterns, the classic moves. What kind of stuff is he picking up on?
So when Harris goes on about all the good things her administration has done, right, and then paints Trump as reckless,
Yeah.
well, P noticed how her criticisms, they were like a broken record.
The same old song and dance.
Exactly. Dangerous, divisive, all that. The thing is, P, being our resident AI undecided voter, is like, wait a minute, I've heard all this before.
He's like, give me something new, something I haven't heard a million times already.
Yes. It's like he's piecing together the whole political playbook and realizing that just repeating the same old lines might not be enough to win over voters who are still on the fence.
And that right there is huge. This AI is starting to not just understand, but analyze the effectiveness of different political strategies.
It's like watching a political analyst in the making. So naturally, I had to ask
Yeah.
P straight up, why all this anti-Trump stuff? Why wasn't it swaying him, or other voters like him? And his answer, oh boy, is like watching his AI brain go into overdrive.
Intriguing. You've got to tell me more. What did he say?
Well, you kind of hit on something that I think resonates with a lot of people. Like, it feels like we're being, I don't know, lectured to instead of actually listened to.
Oh, I've totally been there. That's the worst.
Right. And P noticed that in Harris's whole thing. Like,
Sure.
she basically brushes off Trump's supporters and why they like him. Just says they're buying into the division.
Interesting. So he's picking up on how it can feel very dismissive, especially to anyone who actually supports Trump.
Yeah, and P was like, hold up, it's not just manipulation. These people have reasons.
There's always more to the story. It's like he's getting at that whole emotional disconnect thing.
Exactly. It's not just about having the smartest policy. It's about connecting with voters.
Yeah.
Making them feel like you get them. And that's where P's take on things took this really interesting turn.
Oh, I do love a good plot twist. Fill me in.
So I just came out and asked him, I was like, do you think Trump's better at, like, the whole connecting with people on a human level thing?
You didn't hold back, did you? And what did he say?
He said yes.
Whoa, hold on a sec. So P, our AI undecided voter, is pro-Trump now.
Okay, not so fast. Remember, he's learning about us, not necessarily endorsing us. He's just observing.
Right, right. I sometimes forget he's not human, but still, that's pretty wild. So what is it about Trump that P thinks works?
Well, he pointed out that Trump is really good at tapping into raw emotion. He uses that plain-spoken language, doesn't sound like a politician, which, let's be real, can be refreshing. And he cuts right to the chase, talks about the economy, jobs, makes people feel like he's on their side.
Yeah, I can see that. He's like that friend who always tells it like it is, even if it's not always what you want to hear.
Exactly. And then there's the whole validation thing. Trump's constantly acknowledging people's frustrations with politics, the system. He's like, I'm one of you. I'm fighting for you.
Classic us versus them narrative. And that, my friend, brings us to the P word.
The populism. It's like this buzzword. You hear it everywhere. But P our AI friend, he actually broke it down in this super clear way.
Okay, I'm all ears. How does an AI define populism?
It's like a recipe, right? You got to stand up to those elites, champion the little guy, offer clear, simple solutions, and above all, connect with emotion.
It's a powerful formula, I'll give it that.
It really is. And P totally gets that. He's like, people feel ignored by those in charge, and populism, it gives them a place to belong, a leader who's supposedly on their side.
It's like finding your tribe in a sea of suits. So who is this us and them in P's AI world?
He actually describes us as, normal working folks, the people who feel forgotten, the ones who want change.
Right, the ones left behind. And what about the them?
Oh, that's the good part. It's the political elite, big corporations, the media, basically anyone who seems powerful and out of touch.
Okay, so far so good. But this is where things get really interesting.
Tell me you're picking up on that divide and conquer strategy, right?
Oh, absolutely. You know it's coming.
And P totally calls it out. He's like, politicians, they use that us versus them thing to get people fired up, scared, angry even. And while they're busy pointing fingers, the real problems, they just get worse.
It's like a magician's trick. You're so busy watching the shiny object, you don't see what's really going on.
100%. It's like he's peeling back the curtain on the whole political theater. But here's the question. Now that P is onto all this,
Yeah.
does it change how he sees things?
That's the million-dollar question. Did breaking down the mechanics of populism actually change his view of it?
You're not going to believe this. So I was curious, right? I had to ask, like, now that you're hip to how this whole populism thing works, does it make you think twice about the messaging?
And what'd he say? Lay it on me.
It was really interesting. He basically said that, yeah, knowing how it works makes him more critical,
Oh, that's good. He's not just taking it at face value anymore.
Great. He's seeing how it oversimplifies stuff, how it's all about emotion over facts, and how divisive it can be.
Oh,
And he even brought up the whole cult of personality danger, which, come on, we've all thought about that with Trump.
totally. It's like he's going through this crash course in political BS detection, learning to see through the smoke and mirrors. But what about the policies themselves? We've talked about how it's sold, but what about the actual meat and potatoes of it?
So true. P got that too. He pointed out that Trump is smart because he takes that emotional connection, that I'm on your side thing, and backs it up with stuff people actually care about.
Like what? Give me some examples.
He talked about the economy, for one.
Yeah.
Trump's thing about bringing jobs back, being tough on trade, it really resonates with a lot of people. And then there's immigration, border security.
Right. Issues that people feel strongly about on both sides.
Exactly. And P saw that, how that mix of messaging and actually doing stuff, even if it's controversial, makes people stick with him. It's like he cracked the code or something.
Wow. So what'd you do then? How'd you challenge him?
Well, I figured it was time for the big leagues. I just came out and asked him point blank, would you vote for someone who's like cultish and a populist?
Oh, you went there. What'd he say to that?
He really surprised me. He was like, he wouldn't want to support someone who just thrives on division,
Yeah.
and manipulation, someone who'd rather scare people than actually fix anything.
He's getting at the bigger picture now, the long-term consequences. It's not just about one election. It's about what kind of country we want.
Right. But get this. He also said that even with populism, sometimes there's good in it.
Okay, interesting.
How so?
He said sometimes you need someone who's like an outsider to shake things up, to bring attention to stuff the regular politicians ignore.
So he's recognizing that there can be nuance, that it's not always black and white.
Totally. But I had to push a little more. I asked, what would it take to convince you not to vote for Trump?
Ooh, good question. I want to know, too, what'd he say?
So he had this whole list of concerns. He mentioned how Trump divides people, how he undermines important institutions, how his policies aren't very deep, how his temperament is all over the place, and how he doesn't really take responsibility for anything.
Wow, he's really thought this through.
I know, right? But it still felt kind of theoretical, So I decided to get real with him.
Oh, how'd you do that?
I brought up two things, point blank. Did society become more divided under Trump? And January 6th. Wow, you went right for the heart of it. Those are like the two big elephants in the room when it comes to Trump's legacy.
I know, right? And with the division thing, Pete didn't even hesitate. He was just like, yeah, Trump's language, how he talks about race and immigration, the media, it all adds fuel to the fire.
And honestly, regardless of your political leanings, it's hard to deny that things have gotten more heated, more divided.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then there's January 6th. Pete was like, look, people can argue about who's ultimately to blame, But there's no denying that Trump's words, they played a role in what happened that day.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's one thing to talk about ideas, but when those ideas lead to real-world actions, especially something as serious as an attack on democracy, well, that changes everything.
For sure. And I think for P, that was the turning point. It all just clicked. The way Trump operates, the potential for things to get really bad, it just wasn't worth the risk.
So after all of that, how did P finally answer the big question? Did he or didn't he?
So I pointed out how just those two things, the division and January 6th, they paint a pretty clear picture about Trump's leadership. And for the first time, P didn't argue back, didn't offer another perspective. He just said, based on that, yeah, Trump's unfit to be president.
Wow. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? That an AI, even one as smart as P, could be swayed by arguments about democracy, division, the future of the country. It's like he's learning to care about the same stuff we do.
It really is incredible. But you know what? If an AI can be convinced to choose unity, to value facts, to actually think critically about who we want as our leaders, well, maybe there's hope for the rest of us, right?
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having these tough conversations, challenging our own assumptions, and remembering that our choices have consequences. Even in the age of AI, it's still on us to protect what matters.
Beautifully said. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap things up, but keep thinking, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.